Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. Now this video is part of the January release hop, so please make sure that you keep hopping along to see lots of different projects. So I am going to be using the fabulous new creative cuts that we have, and this is the houseplants layering die. This is fabulous. So you can make stand-up plants, you can make trailing plants, you can use the foliage for other kind of images that you already have, but this is a fabulous one to play with. So to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of the images that we have in the die set, and I'm going to cut all of these from white cardstock, and I'm going to do it 3 times. So as you can see, I've just popped that into place onto a piece of white cardstock, and I'm just going to run that through my machine. And I did do that 3 times, so I had lots of different pots and lots of different pieces to play with. So it's all out of white cardstock, but if you wanted to, you could definitely do this out of colored cardstock, and that would kind of stop you having to do as much blending as I am going to do today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these kind of spindly, traily vines that we have, and these are going to be the first ones that we are going to add some color to. So I have lots of different pieces, and I'm just going to place them onto my sticky mat. I love my sticky mat. One of the most favorite things that I use my sticky mat for is to add color to die cuts, because you can simply just stick them down and then you don't need to hold them. When I didn't have my sticky mat, I would get very sticky fingers, but not anymore. So I'm going to use a couple of different greens to add color to this one. The first one that I am going to be using is the matcha tea. I'm using a mini blending tool, but you could use a small one. I wouldn't recommend using the detail to add this kind of amount of ink down, but you can use the detail further along if you want to add in some detail pieces as well. So I'm just adding color all the way over with the matcha tea fresh dye ink there. Once that has been done, I'm then going to add a little bit more color with the swamp green, and I'm just trying to add that right down the kind of vine stem piece that we have. So I'm just adding that down really quite quickly. So I'm not trying to kind of get the tips of the leaves with this, because I want that gradient effect from the dark to the light. I'm just going to add a little bit more. This is the oak moss, and I have the micro blending tool here. I'm trying to add less of this ink just right on the kind of stem vine and right at the very base of those fabulous leaves. This one's really quite dark when you put it down, but don't worry too much because it will lighten up when it dries a little, and then you're going to get that beautiful kind of natural gradient through the stem and the leaves. So I'm just going to keep going with this and make sure that I have everything finished. As you can see, I don't do the whole vine. There are little gaps that I do leave, and I'm not going to worry too much about that. It's just going to give me a more natural feel. So once I've finished with these spindly ones, I'm then going to move on to these like wider leaves that we have here, and I am going to add in some more colors. So here I am using the jade green. This is such a pretty color. I love the softness of this one. I am using a mini blending tool at the moment, but I found that this was taking me a little bit too long. I probably should have switched to the small, but I didn't. I carried on with the mini, but it did take me a little time. I'm then going to carry on and add some more darker color. This is the eucalyptus, and I'm adding that to kind of the base of the leaves that we have here. They are going to be trailing leaves on this one, so I am adding them right at the base there. So once I'm happy with the amount of eucalyptus I had there, I then wanted to add a little bit more, and this is the forest fern. I just love these colors together. This gives us a really beautiful kind of eucalyptus feel when you add all of these colors together. So I'm just adding those in, adding kind of drips and drabs of color everywhere. I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I'm then going to move on to the other pieces. So for the base, I've used the Misty Sage. Then for the kind of shadow, the mid shadow, I'm going to go on to the Mossy Meadow. And then once I'm happy with the amount that I have there, I'm going to add in the dark, which is going to be using the green opal, just going along the stem there to really get that beautiful depth and a dimension on there. So once I've finished with that, I'm then going to go on to the flowers. And for these daisies, I'm going to start with the mint chalk. I am using a mini blending tool again, so I'm just trying to add more of that ink to the kind of center of the flower that we have rather than the tips. The tips themselves do have a white edge, so I didn't want to add it all the way. I'm then going to add in some darker shadow into the center, and I'm going to be using the pool ink to do that. If you do find that you're getting a lot of kind of blended edges, I would go in again with the mint chalk over the top, and that will give you a much smoother blend if that is what you want to do. And then added a little bit more towards the tips on this one, but they are very, very light. I tried not to add too much ink to them, but you know, you get excited when you are doing some ink blending, and it does look very pretty. So for the kind of petaled flowers, the more rose-like ones, I am going to go in with some pink. So I have the pink diamond. Now it is lighter than it is here, but I did use a kind of blending tool that already had a deep pink on. So that's why it's a little bit off there. To add a little bit of kind of difference to this flower, I am going to add some yellow to the tips of the petals, and I'm just using the Sunray ink to do that. So when I'm adding the pink now, I'm trying to not go over the yellow too much, as I do want that to shine through from the edges and give me that really beautiful effect. I'm then going to go in with some Pinkalicious, and I'm just adding that right into the center, and I'm then going to kind of draw that out again with the fabulous pink diamond. Again, it's a little bit darker than it normally is. I'm then going to add some Sunray to the kind of spindly bits that we have, some chamomile to the large flower centers, and then some Snapdragon to the small flower centers. And then we can pop all of these pieces together. So what you're going to need to do is kind of remove the keyhole piece from the center of the flowers and then just line those up. I do have some wet glue on the paper beside me that I'm just dipping the kind of tip or where the keyhole piece is just into the glue, and then adding that and layering that up on my flower. These are so pretty and so very easy to pop together. All you're going to need to do is just line up the keyhole. I love that. You don't need to look at any guides on how the petals are supposed to go together, because the keyhole does that for you. I'm then going to add in the flower center, so you are going to need to use the larger ones for this one, and I do find that using the tweezers really does help with this. I probably keep saying this, but I was one of those people that never thought I needed tweezers, and then as soon as I got them, I find that I use them all the time. So yeah, very handy to have. I'm then going to go ahead and add in the little kind of star piece that we have into the center of the daisies. So if you wanted to, these are only a kind of a one layer petal daisy, but if you wanted to, you could layer these up on top of each other and get more petals, and you could create a different effect with them if you wanted to. I'm then just going to add in the little flower centers. Again, the tweezers are perfect for this. Also, we do have the Perfect Picker that has the kind of wax nib, and that would help you out with this as well. It just goes to like what preference of tool that you like to use. Both would work perfect for this. So once I have all of my flowers and kind of leaves together, I'm then going to go ahead and color in my pots. Now I wanted my pots to have a different feel to them, kind of like the painted folk pots that you see on canal boats and things like that. So that is the look that I was going after. So I'm going to go ahead and use the fabulous acrylic markers to do this, to get that look. So first off, I'm going to color all of the kind of pot pieces in one color. So I have 4 layers for each of the 3 pots that I have here. The first one that I'm doing is going to be using the crimson marker. So that's a really kind of light corally red that we have over there. I'm then going to go in with fresh lemon for this yellow one that we have here. Now I have sped this up quite a bit. The pens don't colour quite as fast as this, but they do cover beautifully and it doesn't take too long at all. I just wanted to kind of speed this up so we can get into the more interesting part rather than me just colour away on a white die cut. So I'm just going to move that over to the side, and I'm then going to go in with the fabulous volcanic lake color. This is one of my favorites, and I'm just going to add that down. I thought this was going to be my favorite pot, but it didn't end up being my favorite pot. Let me know which one's yours at the end. I'm going to let you know when I've finished the pots. All right, so I'm just going to keep going with this and then color all of the pot pieces in. Now I'm then going to go ahead and add in some designs. Now I have the white, and I'm going to add a kind of daisy flower to this red one that we have here. You may need to layer up this white onto the kind of dark that we have there. I have used my pens a lot, so I think I might need a new set because when I had these would have just gone straight on, but at the minute I think I might have used them too much. I'm then going to go in with the lavender color onto the turquoise pot that we have here, and I'm going to kind of add more of a frilly petal to these, so they're kind of heart-shaped. The other ones were oval on the daisy. These ones are going to be more of a heart-shaped petal, and we just have 4 petals on this one, so it's more like a kind of really up-close hydrangea. So that one was using the wisteria color, and I'm going to go in with some lavender fields to add a darker center to this. So I'm just kind of using it as I would a artist marker and just flicking out to add that darker color to the center. I'm also going to add a tiny bit of that deep iris just to add more depth and dimension to this one. So once I have added those dark colors, I'm then going to try and bring another color in. So this is the lavender fields again, and I'm bringing it in from the edge so I can kind of flick into that really dark center that we have using the deep iris marker. You can see just how well this is kind of covering now. If you keep kind of layering these colors up and working while it's still wet, you can kind of blend these colors a little. I'm then going to add in some kind of caramel toffee just to the center to add in the flower center on that one. I'm going to grab some green. I love this vibrant green, and I'm just going to add that down onto my little piece there, just adding some simple leaves around the side just to give me that look of a painted pot. And I really do love the look of this. It looks very rustic, and I do think that these would look really cute in real life as well, so I may need to paint some pots. So that is our first one. So that's our turquoise pot that we have there. I'm then going to go again in with the white onto the red one. And I'm just going to add that and layering it up. And now you can see, because that red's kind of more dry than it was when I first started, that white is sitting a little bit better on there. On this one, I decided to add in a couple of different smaller flowers as well. These ones only have like 4 petals. I just wanted to add a different feel to this pot, because if I had just added another flower and another set of leaves, I don't know if it would have looked too much different from the turquoise pot that I had. So that's why we have a couple more flowers on here. Once I have finished with the white, I'm going to add in some kind of turquoise to the center. So this is the volcanic lake. I'm just adding a couple of flicks from the center there and just adding them onto the small flowers again, just to add a different look. I'm then going to add the white in again, going in from the tips this time and flicking into the center to kind of add a little bit more blended effect to that center rather than those really pronounced flicks that we had before. Just to add a little bit more around the smaller ones as well. caramel toffee again in for the center, just adding a couple of dots in there. I decided to use a darker green for the leaves on this little pot. So again, just adding some really simple leaves. These are just like eye shapes, and I'm just adding a couple of those and then just moving that over to the side. I then wanted to add a really different flower onto this yellow pot. So I'm going to try and do a rose. So I have a kind of a macaroon shape that I've added down with the really light pink. I think that was the blush. And then I'm going to go in with a dark pink, and I'm just adding some flicks from the outside edges, adding a little curly Q to the center, and then just some more flicks. It's really easy. I think this one was the easiest flower that I did. And yes, this is going to be my favorite pot. And I'm just going to go in with a beautiful green color. I love this one, and I'm just adding those in. And there we have it. There are all of our little faux painted pots that we have, and I'm just going to pop those over to the side. I've then grabbed the kind of hanging pieces, and I just need 2 of these, and I'm just going to use one of the browns from the acrylic marker set. So I did color in all 3, but I did only use 2. I then realized that the bottom part should not have been the color. It should have just been brown, so I can see the soil through the kind of top layer of the pot. So I've just gone in with that same brown and just added that just at the top of those pots. We can then add these together. So I'm adding the first layer of the pot onto the base just with some glue tape. I just wanted that to be nice and flat. I wasn't worried about adding any more dimension to that as yet, so I'm just adding that on there. Then for the other pieces, I did want to add some dimension. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some instant dimension foam tape just to the center of the pots. I'm going to curl those around a little before I then add that onto the pot piece. And then for the little lip of the pot, I'm just going to add that down using some glue tape. I don't want any more dimension on there. We're going to have tons more when we start adding in all of the kind of foliage pieces and also those really pretty flowers. So once I have added this little lip on, that's all 3 of the pots done. And I really, really love that yellow one. It just kind of really catches my eye a lot more than the others. I'm then going to go ahead and kind of arrange some of this foliage onto my pots. I'm using my grid mat behind me just to kind of figure out where it's going to sit on a card, and I'm just playing around with both. So on one card, I'm going to have the turquoise and the yellow pot, and then on the other one, I'm going to have a red pot. Like you've just seen me do there, don't be afraid to kind of snip these pieces if they're not as short as you need them to be. I have to say I had so much fun really playing around with being a kind of flower manipulator. I loved kind of playing around with the images, just snipping them off and just playing with being a flower arranger. I love it. So I am just going to keep going with adding these in, snipping off pieces if I need to. Again, really don't be frightened to do that. Make them the way that you want them. All right. So for the flowers themselves, I am going to add these on into place using a little bit of foam tape. The foliage themselves, as you could see, I just glued those straight on. So I'm going to add one of the roses. I was going to add another rose to my yellow pot, but I decided it looked too much like my yellow pot, so I didn't want to take that color up a little bit more. So I removed that and I've just used the small little daisies. I'm then going to go ahead and add in the hanging one. So this one's going to be lower. So I've added that right on the edge. And I'm then going to kind of find a point on my guide underneath me to see where I want my other little dangler to be there. So we can add those in. Next up, I'm going to move on to my red pot. And again, I'm snipping things left, right, and center to get them to be exactly as I want them to be. don't be scared. Just cut them off. You can use the other parts again later on something different. Or otherwise, it was just a piece of cardstock. Don't worry too much about wasting a little bit of it. I'm sure you might be able to use it if you're really looking forward to. You could make another wreath out of this. I did have tons of other stuff left that I could have definitely made a wreath with, thinking about it. So I'm just going to add all of these other foliage pieces. These ones are going up, and I'm going to add in one of the little rose pieces and a couple of the daisies on there as well. So I'm happy with the arrangements that we have. And I'm then going to make the sentiment. So I have the sentiment again from the same die set, so the Creative Cuts Houseplants. And I'm going to cut both the shadow piece and the sentiment piece from a piece of black cardstock that I already have some double-sided adhesive on. So that is both pieces. The black cardstock had the double-sided adhesive on, so that means I've kind of made some little stickers that I don't need to worry about putting any adhesive on later on. I'm going to do exactly the same with the two pieces using some white cardstock as well. So that is the kind of sentiment piece and also the shadow piece. I then wanted to add a little bit more kind of definition to the background, a little bit more interest. So I have the Diamond Snowflakes 3D embossing folder, and I'm just kind of going to add that through my die cutting machine, and I did do that twice. So I'm going to have two backgrounds for both cards, and I'm going to remove a 1/4 of an inch from each of the side and the bottom, so I can add a little bit of a white clean border around when I add this onto my card. Now, you do get two different looks when you use a 3D embossing folder. You kind of get the embossed design and the debossed. So I'm going to use the two different sides for each of my cards. So for this one that we have here, I have added the embossed side, and then for my dangly plants that we have over there, I am going to use the debossed side. To add my plants into place, I am going to use some more of the Instant Dimension foam tape from Altenew to add a little bit more dimension, like we need it. These have dimension up to the hilt, I think, and there is a lot going on, but because we've just used the kind of white in the background, I don't think it's too much. Well, I don't. Hopefully it's not. I then wanted to add a little bit of splatter to these, add a little bit of artsy design. So I am going to use some of the jet black ink spray and also the pure white ink spray. So I have two different colored splatter on there, and I think that just draws the whole card together, makes it a little bit more fun and a lot more arty. So I'm just going to add both of those pieces onto a card base using Instant Dimension foam tape and making sure that the border around that panel is kind of the same all the way around. I did eyeball it, I didn't measure it. I'm then going to add the white sentiment onto the black shadow and then vice versa. I then wanted to kind of add a dimension, and it did already have stick on. So to get rid of the stick, what you're going to need to do is just use a little bit of talcum powder. You can then add on some Instant Dimension foam tape, and then that's going to be your sticky bit. Only add the kind of talc where you need it. If you wanted to stick like I did with the black hugs on the red card, I wanted the S on the pot, so I didn't add the talc to the S, just the rest, just the hug, and then that was stick down, and then the Instant Dimension foam tape went on the rest. So here are the cards complete. We have two fabulous different ways to use the houseplants, one as trailing designs and then one as an upright planter. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it'd be great if you do share it because we'd love to see. Remember, this is part of the video hop, so you can carry along and get more inspiration using products. Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.